What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again. And can I pout just for a little bit? You know what? It's my show. I'm going to. It is very frustrating when your team loses. It's even more frustrating. Like, I can kind of get it, if you're a Browns fan, you're used to it. I understand that. Or if you're getting blown out every game, but when you lose these games at the last little bit, it's just so frustrating. It makes you mad. And it's just like, one little point and you can't convert it. And believe it or not, it really wasn't on DiNucci this week, which is just shocker to me. We'll get into that with that game, but oh my gosh, I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. I'm going to spare you. Let's go ahead and let's turn this thing around, though. Let's turn that frown upside down and let's smile because, listen, the XFL had a great week. So much so that, listen to this. Think about this, okay? All 4 games, if you totaled the margin of victory up on all 4 of those games this week, 9 points. That's right. Every one of the games, all 4 games, were decided by a total of 9 points. You had 2 games go into overtime. You had a third possible overtime, and you had another close game. Like I said, these were all right there with each other. You had a 4-point game, a 2 2-point games, and 1 1-point game. And when you add all that up, that's 9 points. It was a very, very good weekend for the XFL and a great way to showcase it on ESPN and on ABC this week. Unfortunately, the best game of the week was actually on ESPN2 on Sunday night and was going up against Sunday Night Baseball. And you know how that transpires and how that happens, and you got kicked off to the number 2 station on ESPN2. And I think that that's really where the crux is for things here, and I think that that's where it's going to sit with the XFL. I really feel like when it comes to the XFL and the USFL, that Fox has really put a little bit more of a prominent place, and especially with their partnerships with NBC and Peacock, they've kind of put the They kind of put that product out there a little bit higher and better than what the XFL has done. Nothing wrong with the XFL, but starting your games like you have a little bit later, it kind of does make it nice, but in all reality, like, people are wanting to watch football right after lunchtime, and watch football. That 1 o'clock slot, that NFL traditional 1 o'clock Eastern time slot is the sweet spot on Sunday, and you gotta hit that. And then the 4:30 mark is just perfect. People, I don't mind the Sunday night games. I kind of like them, but also too, it's like, it's 10 o'clock. Like, I don't want to be watching a game at 10 o'clock, and here I am complaining about it. But, you need to put it on your premier channels and do it at that, to where, by 7 o'clock at night, you're on to your weekly wrap up programs that people kind of watch that are getting ready for work in the next week. And I just didn't really feel it this week with the XFL in the Sunday time slots. Now, I enjoyed both of the games. I thought they were fantastic, and I thought that they were a great showcase of what we want with the XFL. None of it looked like it was subpar play or anything of that nature. It all looked really, really good. And, I enjoyed all of the games. It was a nail biter for me the whole time. I guess that's what happens when you're a fan, not just a fan of the league, but a fan of a team, and you've got a team that you're rooting for in that. But I have to say, though, that XFL kind of showed out this week. We'll see if it transpires to anything in the ratings. We do know that a lot of people had were off with family this weekend for Easter, for spring breaks, things of that nature. So we'll see if that translates to anything with the viewership. I'm kind of curious to see how that all works. So let's go ahead and let's break down some of these games. Getting into our first game, we've got our Houston and our San Antonio game, and this one was actually kind of a surpriser for me. Believe it or not, the South can play defense. They just can't play offense. At least that's what we're figuring out. We thought that Houston had an offense, but they can't figure it out either. And teams have figured out Brandon Silvers, and he's going to need to figure it out. I think it's more on him than it is the offense. But when these teams get back in that, they don't sit back and let him dink and dunk and really dissect them. He has a hard time, especially against teams that can cover you man to man. And the Brahmas had some really good corners that can live out on islands. And, they showcased that in this game, and that kept them around. The Brahmas, like I've said all year, they are one quarterback away from being a really good team in this league. And Jack Cohn is just not going to be the guy. We'll get into that as we go on. But they had ample opportunities to take advantage of it in this game, and just by the lack of having somebody that is going to distribute the ball around and be able to do that, that's what they were lacking. The running game was fine today. It really has to be that quarterback general, and that's what kept them. And in this game, you got into overtime, and Houston was able to hit the mark, on their last try, and the Brahmas just missed it, and that's how it is. It was an exciting game back and forth, and the defenses played really well on both sides of the ball. It just came down to that Houston had a little bit more firepower on offense than San Antonio did, and that was the difference here. San Antonio, believe it or not, still has an outsider shot at the playoffs, but virtually they're pretty much done here. Houston's they've punched their ticket into the playoffs, so we'll see how things transpire with them. If they change, I wouldn't be surprised if they take these next 2 weeks as kind of more of exploratory things to try to figure out how to revamp that offense once they get into the playoffs and to get them into the championship and win the championship. But I wouldn't be surprised if Houston finishes out the season at like a 6-4 record. That I don't really see them getting the 7-3 unless a switch flips and they figure something out here in the next couple of weeks on offense with it, and they get that offense back. It really shows you just how one player can make a difference in Kirkland. Now let's go ahead and let's break down some of these players. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start here with the Brahmas. And you've got Jake Cohn here. Jake Cohn was 23 for 41 on the day. And he can't be throwing the ball that much. One, I don't even want him on the field, but two, he can't be throwing the ball 41 times. At the most, I want him throwing the ball 25 times if he has to be on the field. And he threw 2 picks. And he got sacked 6 times on the day. I mean, when you're getting, those are the 2 big things right there. And a lot of those, so it's bad decisions on when to throw the ball down the field and where you're throwing it. And the second thing, too, is he's holding onto the ball way too long. The offensive line is unfortunately getting the flack for him, and they've shored up a lot of things. I mean, when he's back there, there are some times, and everybody has those times when, they've got that unblocked man, you've got to take care of them. And that's that. You're going to have those. But majority of these sacks are quote-unquote coverage sacks. But really what they are is Jake Cohn can't make up his mind to throw the ball or throw a wide receiver open. If you watch, he stands back there, he dances in the pocket, and unfortunately doesn't really have enough athleticism to really further that any further than pick up a first down here or there with scrambling, and those are very few and far between, and mostly they translate into these sacks, and that's why he got sacked 6 times on the day. I'm not gonna put that on the offensive line in this game. Now, looking at the rushing game, man, Patrick's like 4 yards from getting that 100-yard game, and he ran really, really hard. Hillman came in, and he's just not the guy. It would be nice to see if they could pick somebody else up for these last couple games to really get things going to help Patrick out, especially with Balaj being missed. But man, Patrick ran hard. Like I said, that running game wasn't the issue today. The issue was really the passing game. When you're looking at these receivers, I feel bad for them. there's a lot of potential there. Looking at guys like Mac, Akers, it's all right, but it's really those and especially those big wide receivers. Looking at the guys like Vasher, like I said, Mac, Yeldon. Those are the guys that could really run open and do some stuff for them there, and it's just not clicking and not hitting, and Brown is I'm not too impressed with Brown there. He had a lot of mistakes in that, and he didn't help things out in the passing game. Looking defense wise, man, these guys they stepped up, and I can't. The Scott brothers, man, these guys are legit. And especially number 45, Delante. He's got 2 tackles for loss on the day. He had the one really nice big sack, but he's all over the place. I mean, on the one play, he's like calling exactly what they're going to do and run, and he has that nice big tackle in the back. He really is like a general back there. And I'll tell you what, too, the XFL has found football gold with him, with throwing the mic in his face. I think it's fantastic. There's 2 things that happen. One, you get really simplified, good football analytics, and the second thing is that the man gets excited, and it is just fun to listen to him encourage his guys, yell, tell you exactly what they're doing, and I mean, he is a lightning rod of energy. I mean, he's a fun guy on camera, and he really engages you in that, and he really is a leader for this exceptional defense. They've really turned into a nice defense, and unfortunately, they don't have a quarterback. This team is one quarterback away from being good, and it's a shame because I can really tell that the coaching staff with good night, long time Steeler. His name is Hines Ward. I was losing it there for a second, but Hines Ward, you could definitely tell that he's doing a very good job. He's just in a weird position where he doesn't have a quarterback. He's had 2 guys now that have gone down that could have been the quarterback that they needed, in Sinnott and in Benkert, and it just. You kind of have what you have, and you're going to have seasons like that, unfortunately, and you've got to figure things out. But hopefully he sticks with the league, and I would love to see him back, retool that team, and come back firing in year number 2, turning things over now to Houston. And this one was more of a shocker to me. I thought that they were going to be able to with having Silvers back this week, they were going to be able to take this thing and really make a difference. And so Silvers here. The big issue for Silvers is the 2 interceptions, and a lot of that is on him. And he was sacked twice, which wasn't as big of a deal, but he has got to make better decisions. And teams have now figured out that if you play press man-to-man with him, you can confuse him, you can give him issues, and then if you get after him, especially if you have a decent pass rush, and like I said, if you can put guys out on islands by themselves, he's going to have a tough day, and he did. 36 times passing, only 17 completions for a total of 146 yards. That's not what you want to see. That might get the job done against the Brahmas, but that ain't going to win you any championships. And they need to figure something out with him and this team. And the nice thing is that they do have a couple weeks here to where they can tweak some things, do some things. Now, he could be still hurt. I don't know. And if that's the case, then you sit him for the next 2 weeks and get him ready, or you sit him for a week or whatever and get him ready for the playoff run. Max Borghi, looking at running, he had kind of an atrocious day. They shut down the run. They were coming after him with the run, and it was, the passing game was dismal, and the running game in this style of offense is predicated by the pass game, and so you're going to do that, you're going to have that. I mean, I really don't feel like the run game was never really It never got an opportunity. It never had a chance to get off the ground. Max Borghi still is a guy to where I feel like he's being underutilized in what they've got right now. Kirkland was your guy, and I think that they're trying to make Burnett that guy, and Burnett's just not that guy. Burnett really does better in that second slot, that second fiddle role. He really shines, and he really does a good job there. I don't know if maybe Bird can be that guy, but Borghi is such a special talent that you've got to utilize him. And I just think that they've got a missed opportunity with him and with that. If you were wondering, this defense is still really, really good. Like I said, they had 6 sacks on the day. I mean, tip up in the air, catching interceptions. I mean, it is just crazy. So Mason literally tips the ball up to himself, catches it, and then runs it. And then Will Likely is likely one of the best players for ball hawking and being in the best place at the right time. I mean, he has done that all season for this team, and he continued to do it here. 2 interceptions, 6 sacks. I mean, what more can you say? They're the reason why this team won. And, they shut out the Brahmas in the overtime, and the Brahmas gave up the one 2-point conversion or extra or overtime try to Houston, and that was the difference in this game. But, overall, this was a fantastic game. It was a fun one, and I really enjoyed watching it. And turning our attention here now, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go on over to the heartbreaker, at least for me. And this game was fun. This was the game of the week, and this game should have been on... It should have been on the flagship. The reality of it is you had the 2 best teams in the league, and it showed. You have the best team at winning by 1 point. And I was kind of getting a little hopeful there at the end that maybe that they were going to have kind of that hangover from losing and not being able to pull it out. But really, I think they stood strong, and the Dragons just couldn't convert on those 2, the 2-point conversion and the 4th and 15. I felt like it was just a little too much squirrely dirly for DiNucci in those settings, and it would have been better had he kind of just on that 4th and 15 tried to get the ball a little bit better. They tried that naked boot, and he ran right into a guy. They just that happens to you, and that's the game. I will say that offense got going a little late. If they could have got things moving a little bit earlier in the game, I think that they probably could have took control and won this game. But it just was kind of almost like it was just a little too late. And like I said before, this one for me wasn't on DiNucci. This one had to be on that defense. The defense, oh my gosh, with all of those stinking penalties. I don't know. I tried looking up the stats after the game. They had to have had over 100 yards in penalties. Pass interference down the field on a 3rd and forever was just killing me. Every stinking time they continued on these drives, they were stopping DC, and they continued DC drives on for them. I mean, they would get 1 or 2 they would get those 2 first downs, and that would get them rolling, and then it was just like a snowball effect, and before you know it, they're in the end zone again. You can't do that. You can't give that up. You can't grab those players like that and do that. They're already calling you. You know that after the first 1 or 2, you've got to stop it. I mean, the penalties really hurt them tonight. I know that they had 9 penalties, which is way too much, and that was the thing that really hurt them more than really DiNucci's interception. And yeah, the ball, he threw an interception in the red zone again. They kick that field goal in there, and that's a win for them. That ball got tipped up way up in the air. So can you say it's on him? I mean, he threw the ball that did get tipped. So I don't know, but I can tell you if that defense was more stout and didn't make those penalties that they did, that this game would have been a different game and probably more in Seattle's favor. With that, I really feel like it was the defense that lost the game for the Dragons more than DC kind of winning, and DC just had the composure, and that's kind of what I felt like was going to happen here. DC is another one of those teams that does a really good job of taking advantage. They're not as good as the Battlehawks are. Battlehawks are just they're masters of taking what you give them and turning it around on you, whereas DC is just kind of like they're just a constant like pound you, and and every time that you flinch, they just push you back, and I just felt like it was just that wave, and it really hurt them. Now, going ahead and looking at kind of some of these stats and breaking this down: 28 for 42 for 301 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He wasn't sacked today. It wasn't DiNucci's fault or that old line's fault. They did well with the game today. So, I've got he wasn't the reason. He threw the 1 interception, but not really his fault. Really, he's not the reason that they lost this game. I think he played well. 42 times throwing the ball. Do I really want to see that? I want to see a little less than that, but am I like that's out of line? No, not really. Rushing the ball, Philip Lindsay got in the game and ran some. They were against one of the best rushing defenses in the league, and it showed. I would have liked Hammonds to get a few more touches in that area. DiNucci did what DiNucci does, so he scrambled well with it. It was nice to see, Lindsay get some carries. I think once he gets acclimated to this team, things will be a little bit better for him. Green has still been coming on. Green had 7 catches in this game for 142 yards and the 2 touchdowns. Green was wanting it, and it was nice to see. Jackson was another guy that stepped up, had some big catches. Josh Gordon did kind of the Josh Gordon thing in this game. Pearson showed up late with some nice catches and, doing some abilities, his normal abilities there. He's a guy that's definitely, unfortunately, we're not going to see him possibly on this Seattle Dragons roster next year. He's gonna be picked up by some NFL team, and he'll probably be playing in the NFL next year, which good for him. All in all, though, they played well. This defense wasn't terrible, but it wasn't. It like I said, it was the penalties. The penalties just really, really hurt them. And they had you had Lalos had another forced fumble. You thought that with that getting that turnover right there on the plus side of the field, perfect placement, you thought that, okay, now that was going to be the thing to change things up. And then, of course, what happens? You have the DiNucci interception that negated that for them. The defense didn't play terrible. The issue were that at the moments that they needed to make the stops, they had mistakes and penalties, or didn't finish tackling guys and let guys continue to run on. You had, the Blair touchdown, which was missed assignment. You had things like that, whether it be with Smith, and others that, it was like I said, it was a very, very frustrating thing as a fan, and you felt like the defense played better than what they actually showed in this. Now, looking at the defenders and going through and looking at their stats and what they've got, Jordan Teamu has pretty much come into, and he, as you can definitely tell, this whole 2-quarterback system, your King's going to get a few plays here and there, but now it's the Jordan Teamu show, which I think that they need to be doing all along. 26 passing attempts is pretty. I like that for him. 246 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was sacked two times on the day. He ran hard, but he took a beating. I don't think, that's going to be one of those things with him. I think that you're going to end up with that with him. But I like the effort that you're seeing with him. This is why he is so special and why he's bounced around the NFL and why they like him in the NFL is when Jordan Ta'amu is on and when he's got his head in the game and he's determined to play. This is what you get. So I think that it's huge. And going through and looking at some other things here, rushing, Abram Smith, this is the first time that we've really seen a team, since his kind of breakout game, really take him to task and, averaging 3.9 yards a carry was pretty good with them. They did a decent job holding them. Like I said, it wasn't the Seattle defense really didn't do a bad job. It was just the penalties and on, giving up big plays. And speaking of big plays, Chris Blair had another big game for 5 catches, 148 yards, and the one long touchdown there, towards the end. And, it's crazy. You take away those things and, this is a much different game, but hey, you got to give it to him. Lucky Jackson had some other nice plays. It was a good scheme game plan by the defenders, and they took what they got, and yeah, they ran with it. Their defense today played pretty decent, but I was kind of a little bit surprised with the fact that they weren't able to get any sacks or anything like that. It shows just how good that Seattle offense really is. And, I was really just kind of surprised that they didn't do better than what they did. They had some turnovers that did help Seattle, but, I sound like a broken record, but you can't make mistakes against really good teams. And the defenders are a really good team, and they're going to take advantage of it, and they did, and that's why they won this game. Some of the things now to kind of look at kind of the way things are shaping up in the XFL and kind of what's going on. So kind of from a player standpoint, a couple of cool things that we've got kind of going on right now. So you've got Ben DiNucci, our first quarterback that is thrown for over 2,000 yards in a 10-game season through 8 games. That's pretty good. He right now is on pace to where he legitimately could break 2,500 yards, which is 200 yards passing a game, which is pretty huge. If you kind of think about it that way, right now he's about 500 more passing yards than anybody else in the league. I mean, it just goes to show you how good DiNucci really is, and he's another guy that's probably going to get a shot somewhere. Again, I don't know, he might not. Abram Smith's a guy that I thought might have a chance to get to 1,000 yards. He's got 300 yards more than anybody else. He's at 720. That's a really outside chance. I don't see it happening unless he has just another ridiculous 200-yard game, which he quite possibly could. But it's interesting to kind of see that and kind of compare it to the USFL from last year. These numbers are much larger. I mean, with 2 games left to go, Smith has more rushing yards than anybody else did, by almost 100 yards in the USFL through a 10-game season last year. And you had last year, Ta'amu had just over 2,000 yards passing in the USFL, and he had the most yards. And Ben DiNucci right now is right at that with a couple games left to go to where he could have 500 more yards than Ta'amu did last year. So you can definitely tell that it's working for the XFL with the offense, and they're getting the offense that they've been looking for here. Now, turning things to kind of the standings in the playoffs, you've got pretty much 3 teams that in the South. The South is pretty much all about the defense, like I said, and that's the way it's looking here. Houston's clinched. You have the Renegades that have a solid 2-game lead on the Brahmas. Unless the Renegades fall flat on their face somehow, some way, the Brahmas are almost virtually eliminated. It's going to be an Arlington and Houston slugfest to get into that championship game, and then you have the Defenders now who have clinched their spot in the playoffs, and then you've got the Battlehawks and the Sea Dragons. The Sea Dragons right now are kind of really teetering. They've got more of an outsider shot of getting in. That loss tonight really, really hurt them in that kind of scheme of things, especially with their early losses in the season. But they're not completely out of it. The Battlehawks are, the Battlehawks could seal things though if they keep winning and win on out. So we've got some things to watch for here for the rest of the season. But I think that we've got a couple more weeks before we get into it, but this week starts the USFL. I will be covering the USFL. I'm going to start giving you kind of my previews, my predictions this week. So you're going to see a lot of USFL content coming out this week, and I'm pretty excited about that. As always, let me know what you think down in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. Love to know your thoughts, and we'll continue the conversation on down there. Listen, guys, I know that you're busy, and I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. Have a good night. Bye.